Hello and welcome to A Deadly Silence. I'm your host, Larry Curtis, and it is the goal of all of us associated with this program to bring you current and educational information surrounding not only the alcohol and drugs affecting the city of Brockton, but affecting all of our South Shore communities. Today, our guest is Melissa Weiksnar, who is a keynote speaker, panelist, advocate, and author. Melissa is a graduate of MIT, the University of Houston, and Harvard Business School, and has spent over 20 years in the high technology industry before changing careers to high school teaching. Melissa is married, the mother of 2 children, and lives in Greater Boston. She hopes that through the tragedy of her younger daughter's death, lessons can be learned because, in her words, we cannot lose any more children. Melissa, welcome to our show.
Thank you.
And condolences from all of us, obviously, here at A Deadly Silence. We understand that Amy, your daughter, just shy of 21 years of age, passed through an addiction issue back in December 26 of 2009.
Yes.
Could you share with us what happened over the course of that time?
Amy was sick with addiction for about 6 years, but we didn't realize that it was addiction until about 6 weeks before she told us that she was addicted to heroin and wanted to take a medical leave of absence from Boston College. She was a junior in the nursing program and decided that she wanted to get a restart on her life, go to treatment, and unfortunately she never made it through her first treatment.
So literally 6 years as a sophomore in high school, a 15-year-old student in
Yes.
high school, and graduated high school and then enrolled into the college program that you had just mentioned. She was able to hide this from you, pretty much so. Was it what type of drug was ultimately the cause of death here?
It was multiple drugs, but opiates were definitely involved.
Opiates were involved.
Yeah.
So if you, looking back, as difficult as it may be, was there a progression or something that ignited started this in the age of 15, that you can put your finger on?
I think so. It's interesting because Amy left the world a gift of her journals, not just the journals she wrote in rehab, but the journals that she wrote all through her adolescence. And after she died, I did start reading them and found that she basically began with cutting and caffeine and sleeping pills when she was a 9th grader. And she graduated to marijuana on July 26th of 2004 when she was 15 and a half years old. And she was caught for smoking marijuana at the start of cross-country practice when she was a sophomore in high school. And we had to get some counseling for her, and she seemed to be doing better, but a few months later, we caught her with evidence of what appeared to be cocaine, but more significantly, we discovered that she was cutting at that point.
When you say cutting, what do you mean by cutting?
Using the end of a pen or razor blades to get the stress out by making...
physically cutting, abusing the body, basically.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so she had her first treatment around Thanksgiving in sophomore year of high school. But at that point, she resolved that she wanted to get back on track academically and did very well the rest of her sophomore year. And there were occasional incidents in junior and senior year of high school involving alcohol. And once I discovered Vicodin in her purse, but I had no idea what a big red flag that was. But apparently she started using heroin when she was 17, used some OxyContin, and really seriously got into the opiates in college, but again was able to go long stretches of time without using them. But she had a very bad decline at the beginning of her junior year.
My God. And so during that 15, 16, 17 age group, she's experiencing, trying different types of drugs, and you're finding this on an occasion, when you probably accidentally tripped over it and saw it there. You're seeking the appropriate counselings that are out there.
Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about the type of counselings that she may have experienced during that time, because I think there's a kind of a myth out there in the addiction world for parents who aren't familiar with what the addiction issues really involve, that an individual can go to counseling or go to rehab and come out cured, and that's not the case.
Right.
Right. So what kind of counseling was she having at that time?
It varied. I mean, the very first counselor she consulted was a social worker who Amy was totally able to manipulate. Amy was very bright. She knew how to push people's buttons, and she was able to withhold things. And I learned about that in reading the journals, although certainly at the time she was in counseling, there would be times when it seemed like this isn't working and the family system is feeling like it's chaotic and we don't know what it is, and nobody was actually able to put the label of addiction on it until she admitted it to us later on. And what I didn't know at the time was that there are people who are specialists in addiction psychiatry and in addiction medicine. Just like if you're having general medical issues, you go to a
the
GP.
General practitioner who refers you to a specialist.
Right, exactly. For a heart issue, you go to a cardiologist. Right. And we did not know at the time that we really should have been seeking out specialists.
And I think that, as a parent of two children that got involved in heroin addiction as well, and my children are, in long-term recovery today and alive and well, and I consider myself a blessed parent that I'm not in the situation that you've experienced in the loss of a child. That one of the things that we experienced as parents is that who do you turn to? Where do we turn to? It's like nobody wants to talk about it. If you try to seek help, you're not sure where to seek that help. I mean, is that what you discovered as well?
I think so, and plus the fact that Amy presented in a way that was overall so positive that I think a lot of providers and counselors didn't really believe it. How can this young woman who looks so good and she's can do so well in school, how can she really have a problem? So the stigma of what an addict looks like, I think ultimately was a big problem with Amy because I don't think people took her seriously. She didn't fit the
stereotypical description of an addict.
Right.
Right. That TV portrays for
right.
a lot of times out there,
Yeah.
And that's true in all of the neighborhoods across the country. Is that there are very, very many young men and women who are in the high school or college age that bright, brilliant young men and women who are able to hide that type of an addiction from their loved ones,
and
basically.
From their medical providers. I mean, I've run into very senior level medical professionals who find out years later that, my son was smoking marijuana before school every day in high school, and I had no idea.
So Amy's approaching high school. I mean, graduation for high school. Let's talk about what she's getting ready to go on to college. So let's take the story from there.
I think we were really wondering, should we be looking for rehab for her or looking for colleges? But the professionals reassured us that since she had so much academic potential, once she was in the right college environment, the academics would prevail and the other stuff would kind of, recede.
Was it a peer pressure thing? I mean, everyone thinks the addict who takes the pill or puts the needle in their arm has made that choice, but a lot of times is exterior pressures that are, leading that addict, that person down to the addiction, issues out there. Was there peer pressures from the group of friends she was growing up with? Did you notice any changes in that at all?
I think what happened was when she left public school to go to an all-girls Catholic school, we didn't realize at the time what a big shock that was to her system. She was a very social kid. As one relative said, she needed her social life like other people need oxygen. And in removing her from that peer group and putting her in an all-girls peer group, I think she found that incredibly frustrating. And she wanted to be popular. And the cool kids in this very smart school tended to be experimenting, especially the older ones, and she wanted to fit in.
With drinking or the alcohol or the drugs, smoking, whatever. Yeah.
But even when I've spoken with other people in recovery, many of them tell me, don't blame the other kids. Don't say he or she was a bad influence. I was making the choice to hang out with these kids.
That's true. And And as intelligent as she was, and she was able to hide that addiction from not only you as the family, but as you said, the professionals, that's pretty scary to think about. That, the drugs actually can help increase that ability to hide, that addiction issue. I mean, I've seen it with one of my sons, I would not have thought of it, addicted to, the Vicodins after having his wisdom teeth out and, going on through high school and not even realizing that,
Such a common story.
He was involved in, more and more
Yep.
of pills coming down the line.
Yep.
It's very, very interesting. So choosing colleges or choosing rehab,
Yep.
obviously the guidance that you were hearing was she's bright, young, intelligent. Let's keep her
Yep.
education going forward,
Sure.
and she'll catch on.
Yeah, and in fact, she started off at St. Louis University and decided that she really wanted to come back to Boston, and I told her, you have to find a college that's at least academically equivalent or more rigorous. And so she set her eyes on Northeastern and Boston College. And she didn't get in the first time to BC as a transfer student. They wanted to see another semester,
Okay.
but she got in the second time. So she started there in spring of her sophomore year, and she loved it. And she was doing very well academically. And the summer between sophomore and junior year, she took a 3-week intensive microbiology class. So at BC, that's pretty heavy duty. And first test, she earned 108. Second one, it was only 106, and earned an A in the course. And my husband and I looked at each other and said, she can't be messing up that badly if she can earn those kinds of grades. Totally wrong, because that was the point at which her use was accelerating. But she was a very high-functioning addict and was able to keep raising the stakes until in about October of her junior year, everything kind of kept crashing down. And I will never forget the meeting with her substance abuse counselor when we met, and she told me that she was addicted to heroin, and she wanted to go to rehab. And I said, but Amy, you've only got 3 more weeks till the end of the semester. Can't you finish it out? And she said, well, I could with C's and D's, but I know I'm capable of A's and B's, and I'd rather go to treatment and get healthy and have a fresh start. And then her counselor looked at me and he said, if your daughter had just told you that she had stage 4 cancer, would you be asking her if she could finish the semester? No, you would be trying to get her into the best medical treatment you could, because she had a very serious disease.
Can I just step back and ask, how did that make you feel, I guess? I mean, because I think, I guess educationally we understand the want to go and complete the course, but I guess physically with the addiction issue, I'm surprised, at that, that was kind of one of the questions that you would pose to her is, can you complete the course and then go, when she is asking for the help, so the counselor pointed that out very well, I thought.
Yep.
I mean, very, very
I agree.
well.
And that was the real turning point for me in looking at addiction as a disease, as opposed to she's being a brat, or she's going through a phase, or she's acting out, or something like that.
Was there denial in the addiction issue over the course of like that 6-year period that, okay, yeah, she's experimenting, like you said, or going through a phase? Was that more of a parental denial? I mean, because I get it, parental denial, he can handle it, my son can handle it, he'll get off of it, he can stop it. Was there any of that you felt, personally?
Well, I think I felt that the education she was getting was going to be an immunity.
Okay.
But education is not an immunity anymore to addiction than it is to asthma or cancer or diabetes.
Correct.
And as she kept having these ups and downs, and we were working with various people, nobody really put forth the A word. And so we couldn't really think that, this is what's happening in our family. And the fact that we were never referred to a bona fide parental support group, either a 12-step or Learn to Cope, if I could turn the clock back, that is the one thing I would do differently, making sure that I had support.
Some support for you as to what type of experiences you're going to be going through.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Learn to Cope is, the best. In my
agree.
opinion,
Yep.
it is the best for any parent or loved one who is dealing with an addiction issue with one of their children. No
and
question about
with
it.
Learn to Cope, it's not just the peer support,
Right.
it's the fact that family members can be trained in Narcan, they can, they can buy drug test kits, and they've got fabulous speakers who can educate you in so many different areas.
Absolutely. And the sad part of all of this addiction issue is that an organization like Learn to Cope that Joanne Peterson found back 10 years ago, started out with her having the courage to stand up and ask, help me.
Yes.
Who do I turn to? Where do I turn to?
Yep.
Is now 6,000 parents strong.
Yep.
And it still might only be the tip of the iceberg. As it relates to the addiction issue.
Yeah.
Well,
it's interesting because when I go to see any of my medical providers, I always bring Learn to Cope brochures.
Yeah.
And my providers know about Amy's history.
Yeah.
And I say, well, in case you have other patients who could benefit from this, please have this. They are always so grateful.
Yeah.
And they will then spill their guts about somebody they know who's struggling with the disease.
And that's the other thing as parents that we find out is that, as we have been drawn into the addiction world because of what our children have experienced, and we think we're alone. We're not. There are tens of thousands of parents out there that are, I always call it suffering in silence, because they don't know where to turn to or who to turn to. But once you open that window and let that breeze, flow through and start talking about, how it's impacted you, your family, loved ones, all of a sudden you realize that there's every corner that's happening out there.
Well, I'll never forget how at Amy's wake, I saw this woman, and it shocked me because we had been sitting together in these same business meetings for about 2 years, and she told me, my son is in recovery.
Right.
And it's like here we are sitting across the table from each other, had no idea we were both going through the same thing.
Right.
I've had people in my town come and talk to me. Maybe they feel I'm a safe person because I'm out about it. We were very open that Amy had died of an overdose. And people that I worked with even 30 years ago then came forward with the struggles that they had had in their family. So again, stuff that we never talked about despite all those years of working together.
And that is one of the goals of our program here, is to, open that window.
Break the silence.
And break the silence, the code of silence, if you want to call it that, and get the word out there that you're not alone.
Yeah.
Just raise your hand.
Yeah.
Many, many people are ready to help you out there.
Yeah.
Did you have something you wanted to share with us in the book? Tell us a little bit about the book. Because you had mentioned the journals that Amy wrote. Tell us a little bit about that. Yeah.
So basically, after we had gone to her transitional housing facility where she died, all her belongings were heaped into black plastic trash bags, and we brought them home and put them in the basement. So that was on a Sunday morning. And on Monday, I had to find her burial clothes. And I knew I wanted her to be buried in her favorite jeans, which were somewhere in those plastic bags. And as I was pawing through the plastic bags, I found this journal. And I opened it up and looked at the last page. And when I saw what she wrote, it was, oh my gosh, I can't believe she actually told us what was really going through her. And I couldn't read them all at the time, but I wrote her eulogy that night and then came back to the journals, and I was just amazed. And the next day I met up with a psychiatrist neighbor who looked at the passage, and he said, I work in rehab, and I've never seen such articulate, eloquent writing by somebody in treatment about what it's really like. So that convinced me that she had left the world this gift, that I needed to get out there. So I started working on this book about 5 months after she died, and it was released in July of 2012, about 2.5 years after she died.
Okay.
So I think one of the passages here that really struck me, and this was December 8th of 2009, and she died on the 26th, so it's about 3 weeks before she died. I feel like the drugs have taken over my soul. What happened to the strong, motivated young woman I was last spring? The impending doom sets in as I realize my disease has never been this bad. I stand today as heroin's puppet, feeling as if every fiber in my being is dull, responding only to the stimulation of potential drug use. The disease has a stronghold, a white-knuckled fist, fingernails ripping through my skin, prying deeper and deeper into my body. I wonder what I can possibly do to break free from its grasp and remember the life I used to love and show up for.
Wow. And that was 14 days before she died of the overdose.
A little bit, yeah.
Now, she was in a recovery facility when she overdosed.
She had gone through about a week of detox and 4 weeks of rehab, and she had moved to a residential treatment house.
Okay.
I think it was the Tuesday before she died on a Saturday. But she convinced her counselor to give her a pass for Christmas Day. And of course, it's Christmas, and the sentimentality
Going
kicks
home
in.
to the family,
yes,
all of
exactly.
the...
And somehow she managed to score the fatal drugs when she was on pass. We don't know exactly where. You know, we kept her under our watch the whole time, except, you know, when she went into a bathroom once and when she had to attend the AA meeting that her counselor said was mandatory. But she managed to sneak the drugs into the facility. And the facility did not have Narcan, nasal Narcan. So when they found her, they basically had to wait till the EMTs arrived to administer the nasal Narcan and then the intravenous. And the facility now does have nasal Narcan.
And that whole nasal Narcan, the whole Narcan naloxone drug to repel the opioids, you know, from the receptors within the brain. You know, why that wasn't out there and available during this addiction crisis back in, you know, 2009, obviously, when this happened, you know, I mean, it was available, but wasn't really known.
But there was no Good Samaritan law.
Right.
And so in our litigious society, what if something happens? Although Narcan is one of the most benign substances out there.
Correct.
You know, if you are passed out from being drunk, it's not going to do anything to you. If you're having some other symptom, it's not going to hurt
affect,
you.
Right, correct. You know, but it's going to save your life if you're overdosing on an opioid, you know, from that perspective, you know. And today, with, you know, we've seen, you know, it was less than 2 months ago when Governor Deval Patrick, you know, finally, you know, through the Department of Public Health, recognized that the opioid epidemic is it is an epidemic, basically speaking.
But the Tolman report was saying that back in 2009.
That's true. Yes, Senator Warren Tolman's report back then, exactly. And
Steve Tolman.
So. But it is available today, and it's a credit to many of the counties around the Commonwealth who have taken the district attorneys of the different counties have now made sure that, you know, almost every city and town's first responders, be it fire, rescue, or police, have Narcan with them right now. And I mean, even I know myself, I was at a rally Saturday, and they through BAMSI here in Brockton, they were issuing Narcan out, giving the quick training for how to administer the Narcan and training. And I just said, you know something, I'm going to get one of those and put them in my car, because you never know when you're going to need that, you know, safety net there when you come across an addiction issue like that.
I carry it with me. I mean, what Quincy has done has been amazing. I heard Lieutenant Detective Patrick Glynn speak back on May 7th, and he said that Quincy was up to 259 administrations of Narcan and 247 saves.
And they were one of the leaders here in the South Shore early on to get Narcan into the first responses, you know, in 2010. And you know, Senator John Keenan from Quincy, you know, certainly one of the leaders on the prescription, you know, drug aspects out there. And so thanks to those pioneers actually out there, and what we see now in not only here in the city of Brockton, but, you know, we see it down in Taunton and everywhere else now, that, you know, Narcan's available everywhere throughout, you know, our South Shore community today. Any other thing about the book you'd like to share with us? We've got about 2 minutes left. You don't have to read it, but tell us a little bit more how you found the journals and you
Sure.
took a collection of those to put them together.
Well, interestingly, when Amy had admitted to us on that Monday that she was addicted to heroin, she sent us an email that night that said that her pediatrician had recommended 2 books. One was Beautiful Boy by David Sheff, and the other was Tweak by Nick Sheff. So that was a father-son story about a son with meth addiction who, last I heard, was in recovery. And she and I had actually talked about doing maybe a mother-daughter book where opiates were the drug of choice, because the issues with mothers and daughters are similar, but there are distinctions in those between fathers and sons. So we had actually talked about writing a book like this together.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And in essence, she did her part by keeping her journal together.
Yeah.
And it's your legacy to take that and incorporate your feelings and your emotions into the book.
Yeah.
Can anyone? Where is the book available for?
It's
anyone?
on Amazon, and it's also on the website heroinspuppet.com.
heroinspuppet.com.
And as you heard when I read the expert, Heroin's Puppet were Amy's own words.
Exactly.
And in writing the book, my motivation was that if I had had a book like that to read a few years ago, I might not have to write that now. And I've had affirmations from so many different sectors about how the book has been helpful. Some people have panned it, that's okay. But the people who have found it helpful, that's made it all worthwhile.
I know even this show, if it helps one parent, it saves one life.
Yep.
It's worth the energy and the effort that we all put into it. And I'm sure the same thing is there for the book in your heart, as well. Any particular message to the parents out there that you would say in regards to if you suspect your child is involved in?
Well, as I've heard the people at Children's Hospital say, if you're in your kitchen and you see one mouse run across the floor, chances are there are other mice in the wall.
Yeah.
So trust your gut.
Trust your gut.
Trust your gut.
God, isn't that true?
Yeah.
That is so, so true.
And, I speak a lot in schools. And sometimes the kids ask me, is there anything you might have done differently? And one thing, I think I would have been just more attentive to the pain that she was in and not seeing what she was going through as an acting out.
But she hid it so well.
She did.
She
did. But I think we have to ask our question, what is the pain that these kids have, and adults too, that they're turning to substances? And the other thing is, I was not aware then, and I think in general even the scientific community was as aware 10 years ago, of the impact of even marijuana on the developing teen brain.
Right.
And so to really know what the neuroscience is telling us is critically important these days.
It is, and that leads us into another subject we can't get into on this show, and that is the legalization of marijuana, which many believe is a gateway drug, out there today.
Amy even wrote that in her adolescent journals.
Right. Well, we're actually at the end of our time, and I want to thank you for being with us, Melissa, and sharing your story and Amy's story with us. And again, our condolences from all of us here at A Deadly Silence for taking the courage to come in and share with us. And we wish you the best of luck on the tour, because everything you're doing is only going to help save a life somewhere down the line. From all of us here at A Deadly Silence, thank you, and we'll see you on our next episode. Thank you.